Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel, Cooking for the Family. I made these English muffins. This is a recipe I made for the very first time. I'm going to share with you how I did it and take you along. These are the ingredients that I'm going to be using: bread flour, yeast, salt, some warm milk, sugar, and some yellow cornmeal. So first what we're going to do is I have my milk here. I'm using 2% milk, some low-fat milk. So you can use low-fat milk or either whole milk. And my milk is warmed. I warmed it in the microwave. And I'm using a half a cup of milk. And then to my milk, I'm going to add some sugar. And I'm adding in a half of a teaspoon of sugar. Now the sugar, as well as the yeast that we're going to use, 1 teaspoon of yeast. And yeast likes sugar. It really helps to get it going and helps it to become nice and frothy. And so this is instant dry yeast, and we're going to be using that 1 teaspoon. Now this recipe came to my attention and I thought, I've got to give this a try. I have made before English bread, English muffin bread, and I will put a link to that video that I made English muffin bread, which makes excellent toast. And so I'll put a link to that video down below so you guys can check that out. But once we have our 3 ingredients in our bowl, which is our warmed milk, which was warm to the touch, we have our half a teaspoon of sugar and our 1 teaspoon of instant dry yeast. I use my fork and I just kind of break up those little granules and start to dissolve the little granules of the yeast, as well as making sure our sugar also starts to dissolve and all of our ingredients kind of mix together. Now also, when it comes to the temperature of your milk, you do not want it to be hot, because if your milk is hot, it will actually kill your yeast. So you want your yeast to grow and become nice and frothy. And so just warm to the touch, as in if you took your finger and you kind of like stuck it in your milk that you just warmed in the microwave, and I warmed mine for about 30 seconds, it's going to be nice and warm but not hot. And so this is what it looks like. You see those little bubbles? That's that little frothy bubbles. That means our yeast is waking up and it's looking good. So next I'm going to go ahead and scoop in my bread flour, and I'm scooping my bread flour into my measuring cup. We're going to be using a total of 1 3/4 cup of bread flour. Now ideally you'd want to weigh your dry ingredients, especially when working with yeast and making like a bread product, loaves and English muffins and different things, but sometimes we can't do that, and that's okay. So scooping your dry ingredients versus just scooping them up with the cup helps us to not have more flour than we need, more flour than the recipe calls for. I go ahead and mix the dry ingredients in with the wet ingredients. And then also something that's important is that when you're adding the flour and you're adding the salt, you want to first do the flour just like I did, and then second the salt. I'm going to put in my water. This is 1/3 cup of water, and I'm going to drizzle my water all over my ingredients. Now once I start to pull everything together, first I use my spoon and just start to kind of mix and start to bring your dough together, and you want it to start to pull away from the bowl, and your dough should be sticky. Now as you're doing this, if your dough seems really dry, you can always add a little bit more of the Luke water. Just add it teaspoons at a time, just a little bit, because you don't want to have too much water and then your ratios are going to be off. So just add a little bit of water, about a teaspoon of warm water if need be. Now once my dough was sticky and it was starting to gather, then I switched from my spoon to using my hand. I keep rolling my dough around until it forms a nice ball, just like that. And so just keep rolling your dough around, making sure you're gathering all the ingredients out of your bowl. Now once I form a nice dough in the center, I've got all the ingredients out of the bowl, then I go to my nice clean work surface. We're going to be using just a little bit of flour, not too much, and we're going to start kneading our dough. Now something that I found with working with this dough is that it is initially very rough. And so it's going to start off it's going to be sticky, but it's also going to be really rough. And so what you're going to have to do is really work the kneading process. I ended up kneading my dough for about maybe 8 to 9 minutes or so. And I was using the combination of my palm as well as my fingertips. And I was using my palm to push the dough away from me, and I used my fingertips to kind of bring it back to me as well as roll it over. So really just press down on it, pushing it from you, and then using those fingertips to bringing it back to you and just rubbing it around. Sometimes I was using one hand and one palm, and then you see how I picked it up and I just kind of start to gather and push the dough around. By this time, you want your dough to start to feel smooth and not so rough in your hands, and you want it to be a nice smooth surface, like if you were taking your hand over, say, like a watermelon or something that has a smooth surface and it's feeling smooth. That's how you want your dough to feel, not bumpy at all, not sticky anymore. And so just keep working it till you get to that texture that of your dough that you're looking for. And so like I said, I did it for about 8 to 9 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at the most, but it was about 8 to 9 minutes when I had looked up at my clock. And so just keep pushing your dough away and bringing it back to you. Now once you do that, you want to go ahead and gather your dough in a nice round ball, just like I did there. And I'm feeling on the dough, and it's feeling softer and smoother than what it did when I very first started. And that's what you want it to be. I gather the dough at the bottom, pressing and bringing it together, almost like a giant dumpling. And so once I've done that, the same bowl that we used to mix our dough in, I'm going to go ahead and wash my bowl out really good, dry it out, and then that I'm going to put my dough in so it can rise. So I put the ball right in the middle. I'm going to put a damp cloth over it just like that. We're going to let our dough rise in a nice warm place. So I'm going to sit it over by my stove and let it go ahead and rise. We want to let it rise so it's double in size, and that's going to take around about an hour for it to double in size. Maybe it'll take up to 45 minutes depending on your kitchen, but about an hour. So I let mine rise and it doubled in size, and mine took about an hour. It was right around an hour. And you see, you want your dough, it's going to be nice and pliable, and it's going to be smushy and cushiony, and so it's just going to feel really good. And so this dough, you see how nice it's looking and how good it feels to the touch. And also when you put your fingers in to your dough, it's going to leave an indentation as well. So I put a little bit of flour on my work surface. I have my rolling pin. I'm going to roll out my dough to about 1/2 of an inch in thickness. So just about 1/2 of an inch in thickness. Once I have my dough rolled out to that 1/2 an inch in thickness, then we're going to be using our cutter, and we're going to cut 3-inch rounds. If you have a 3-inch round cookie cutter or biscuit cutter, or you can even go up to a 4-inch round cookie cutter or a biscuit cutter. And we're also going to be using some yellow cornmeal, because after we cut them out, we're going to be setting them on our cookie sheet that has some cornmeal on the bottom. Now when you're cutting out your English muffins, it's important that you want to press firmly down, but you do not want to twist. Do not twist, because when we're twisting our dough, what happens is you end up sealing the sides. And so what happens is when your dough goes to rise, or when you go to bake it, just like biscuits, when you're twisting, if you twist when you're cutting them out, the sides, that twisting actually keeps them from rising very high, and some won't really rise at all. So be mindful, just press down as firmly as you can, and then you can always lift your dough pieces around to get your cutouts out, but be sure not to twist, okay? And so we're going to set it, once we have our cutouts, we're going to set it directly onto our cornmeal, because we're going to do a second rising. This second rising is going to take us about 30 to 40 minutes for the second rising, until they also almost double in size as well. Now if you don't have cornmeal, you can also just use regular flour to let them sit on and let them rise until they're double in size. I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of these out, and we're going to end up with about 7 of our English muffins. This recipe is good for about 7 to 9 depending on the size that you're cutting them out. And something that I found after making these and cooking them up, these are going to make wonderful gifts for the holidays, and put them in a cute bag with a bow. You just made homemade English muffins for people. Oh my goodness, this is going to be an excellent gift to give to someone, whether it be for the holidays or for Mother's Day. This is going to be great. And so this is what they're looking like. I let them rise covered, and so now we have our pan. And so I'm using my cast iron skillet, or you can use any skillet. You want to put no oil. It's actually a dry pan, so no oil in your pan at all. And I must say they feel very light to the touch. And you see around the edges how they've puffed up nicely. You start your fire out on a high heat. Once your fire is nice and high and your pan is nice and hot, you turn your pan down to a medium low, and then you put in your English muffins. And so each side will cook for 4 minutes. And so it cooked for 4 minutes on the first side. You saw me flip them just now. They're looking good. Yours cook them again for 4 minutes. And I was a little skeptical, and so I cooked mine for 5. And so this first round got a little extra toasty on one side, but that is okay. But because I was concerned that they wouldn't be done all the way through, so I was like, I'm gonna give it an extra minute. But follow the recipe, y'all. It's 4 minutes per each side. So that's the maximum you want to do, is 4 minutes per each side. And so this was my second batch. And watch out, because they are a little bit slippery. And so I go ahead and I flip them. Something else is important is that you only want to flip them once. They only cook once on each side. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up my batches, and then we're going to put together a nice breakfast sandwich for ourselves, and we're going to see how we did. Well, I am all done making our English muffins. They look so good. I went on and grabbed the one that got a little extra toasty, and we're going to try that one. I'm going to cut into it. This is the moment of truth. Let's see how it came out. It looks so good in the inside. Do you see that? Oh my gosh. It is so pillowy and it's so light. And you know, when I was cutting into these, I was thinking, oh please, oh please, oh please come out right. But because if not, I had a backup plan B for the family. We was going to have toast to make our breakfast sandwiches this morning. So I have made mine with some bacon, egg, and cheese. I actually have an egg over medium. Go ahead and take your bite. Now I'm going to take my bite and see how we did. Oh my goodness. This has come out so good. Family, y'all have got to give this a try. I have some berry jam I have over there. I have some homemade lemon curd as well. I'll put a link in the description box to my homemade lemon curd. That will go great with these English muffins. I'm making this next breakfast sandwich for my husband. His is going to be with sausage. In the description box below, I will also have a list of ingredients to make these wonderful English muffins. Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing me give this recipe a try. This is going to make a great gift. I'm going to be baking up some batches and giving it to family, friends, and to my neighbors. That is it for me today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, become one of my awesome subscribers, and don't forget to click share this video with a friend or a family. And remember, it's always good when Dyvonne is cooking for the family. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.